My name is Sean Glassberg, and I'm a facilitator for ATEC Academy. And I'll help my colleagues here introduce themselves as well.
My name is Michael Sasso. I'm the airframe and power plant chief for Ames Community College out in northern Colorado. We're a new school that's opening up in January.
And he also facilitates in the ATEC Academy.
I'm Sheryl Oxley. I'm the Aviation Program Coordinator with Tulsa Tech, and participated in facilitating in the ATEC Academy as well.
So thanks for being here. I hope that you're here to learn something about what we're doing to help instructors, especially new instructors, whether they're in a corporate facility or in an educational institution, better be acclimated to teach for the first time, or maybe within the first year or two. So I've got a question for you to start out. We're going to talk about the rationale behind the ATEC Academy. Mike Sasso is kind of like the godfather of the academy and birthed it. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But before we get to Mike and what he's going to share with you about the whole purpose of it, I do have a question for you. And so what I want you to do is use your device, get that QR code right off of our screen here, and I want you to go to this what's called Padlet, and I want you to post your answer to this question. If you are a supervisor or an administrator in here, or a manager, and you don't teach, but you're responsible for hiring instructors or trainers, I want to describe the process that is currently used to onboard and train these instructors so they understand how to apply the best practices of teaching. If you're a faculty member in here, I want you to describe the onboarding and training process that you experience when hired at your institution. I'm going to do the same thing. Mike, Sheryl, if you want to do that as well, to talk about our experiences when we first started teaching. And yeah, we'll see if we get up there. I'm sure there's a lot of different experiences, but maybe some similarities as well. Yeah, I got to go into the middle here. There we go. And so the way that you post it, you'll see a plus sign on the bottom of your screen. Just click on the plus sign, and up will pop up a window, sort of, that says subject. And you can just say, you can title your subject, my experience, and then you write something beautiful, and then you'll post it. And then click Submit when you're ready. You'll be asked to maybe put your name in there. If you'd like to just go by the nickname that's given to you. Right now I'm Polite Puma, but I'll change that. And put my name. Click Done. Here it comes. And here we go. We're seeing some answers pop up there.
I'm sure that.
Make that change. Yeah.
We know what it meant.
Yep. All right, we got a lot of answers popping in there now. Let's go over these answers, and then we'll talk about how they might connect or relate to what Mike's going to share.
Welcome.
You know, some of you might still be, I'll give you 15 seconds. Okay, So let's see what we got. We have a lot of different experiences in the room. I already took a look at it. I was impressed by one answer already where it was very radically different from mine and many other people. Philip, Craig, I think you put right up here, onboarded.
Yep.
So thumb drive, good luck.
Yep.
How long ago was that?
That was about 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Yep. And you had to build and design and make whatever you wanted to make. PowerPoints. There was no training.
No guidance. And so I know Philip a little bit already, and that was at a 2-year college.
That's right.
Okay, we won't say which one.
Yep.
I'll look over my experience. Michael, I think that's Mike Sasso.
Yep.
How long ago was that?
So that was 15 years ago. As an adjunct instructor, I was given a book of projections that you used to put on the light board with the writings on them, 300 pages worth. And I was given 2 weeks in a class list and a textbook and said, have a good time. And it was in subjects that I was far removed from A&P school, far removed from experience.
Different, came out of industry, walked in the classroom. Sounds familiar for some of you? Okay, now I see here serious tilapia. Who's serious tilapia? You have a different experience. And so what's your name? It's not serious.
Dylan, more Northern Tech,
Okay,
in Oklahoma.
okay.
Yeah.
More Norman Tech. You had there's Justin right there. So tell us about what you went through.
I think mine was going to be different than most because I walked into a program that was being built and the foundation was being in place by Justin right here. And I got there before students, so I had a window of time that I think was a benefit for me, and I'll just give my technical center a shout out. I think they did a good job with that time. Spin your wheels type of moment. So I got lucky with a good start, I think.
And you had New Teacher Academy, I think, for those of you who don't know, I think Moore Norman is a public K-12 environment. No? Well, you have high school students on the campus.
Right, it's
Okay.
secondary technical school.
So you had a New Teacher Academy. How long did that last?
12 months. You have a initial ride, and then it's one time a month.
It's actually,
I think that was a different one. Mine was
it's 3 days long.
Yeah, 3 days.
3 days
3
long.
days.
Yeah, you got like an
And-
initial and then a quarterly.
And then a quarterly.
I don't really know about the quarterly part. I don't think so. It's just on the website
It's
yesterday.
different. Yeah, we went to different things.
All right, so different things, different experiences. Just out of curiosity, did anybody else in the room, before I look at some others, have a similar experience as, I'm going to call you serious tilapia, but it's
Okay,
Dylan.
Yeah, thanks.
Anybody have a experience like Dylan's where they had a structured program where they learned how to teach or train? So no one else in here. So I'm going to go through this, and right here we have the ref, right? You put fire hose.
Right.
And where was that? How long ago was that?
We're just starting, so we are talking with new partners in Tulsa, public high school, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and so we did the Learn to Fly, starting 2 years ago.
Right.
And I'm not an aviation, I'm a former higher ed person.
Okay.
So, everything was just a fire hose, it was a fire hose from 6 different directions.
Higher ed is notorious, right? Because for not having people who are educators teach. It doesn't matter if it's nursing, rad tech, surge tech, welding, HVAC, go down the list of trades, the list of healthcare industry professionals who now teach. And even for me, it's English, psychology, sociology, biology, math. No one ever teaches us how to teach. We're not required to go through any practicums, right? You want to go back and think about what students do when they're learning how to teach in the K-12 setting. No one's student teaching for a full semester. You're just thrown in. Anybody in here from industry? They work in a corporate facility as a trainer. Okay. So are you a trainer?
I'm a trainer.
How long have you been a trainer?
Quite some time. Prior course, then I went to 2 MROs, so this is my second MRO
Okay.
as a trainer.
And as a trainer, were you given any sort of best practices? This is what you should do.
No, just my experience in the military.
Yep, so now it's time to get into, we have a lot of other great answers here, I'm sure, that are very similar. You have some shadowing here that Carly put down, shadowing, training the Director of Education. That's great to see. No onboarding or training, fire hose here, right? We talked about that. A new teacher in a high school, pretty much given free reign, so who's Pete? So I'm assuming that because you came to the high school with the industry experience, that was enough, right? To get hired.
Yes.
Right? And so does the high school district have a program for you?
But we're a private
Oh, you private?
School, even worse.
Right, so public usually does.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead, I'm gonna turn this over, put this back into the presentation here, and get into the rationale, which is what Mike is gonna talk about. Yeah, I'll pull them together.
So, a little quick story. I was a product of aviation industry for 30-plus years, second generation aviation maintenance tech. My dad did it for 20 years for Pan Am for many, many years back in the day. For those who remember Pan Am, TWA, Eastern Almost for airlines. And I graduated from a high school program in New York, Aviation High School. I went to Spartan School of Aeronautics. I got out in the industry and I made my way all the way up to director of maintenance for a small regional airline, it's now known as Endeavor. And then I retired at the age of 45 and decided, now what do I do? And so I decided to start teaching. I answered an ad to become an adjunct instructor. And I joined a community college and I thought, wow, this is great, a real professional organization. Community college has been in business for 75 years. They must need somebody who knows avionics. So I went in and started teaching avionics on a Friday evening, and I was there by myself, and you saw my post. I was given a book of projections, and I was given 2 weeks of the class list and said, have at it. And I thought, wow, I've never really taught in a classroom. I was a pastor in a church. I taught a few men's retreats and things like that, but I never really taught formal curriculum. And I started to ask the other instructors who had been there for 35 years plus, and I said, how were you guys trained? And they looked at me and said, training, what are you talking about? We just kind of stepped in and shared everything. And I hate to say this, but not every good aviation technician is an instructor. Even though we've probably done OJT on the floor, we probably know how to hold a cup of coffee and tell a lot of good stories, right, of all of our experiences. It just doesn't translate into teaching. So there was a lack of orientation, there was a lack of onboarding, lack of exposure. I actually went to my college teacher training 2 years after I started teaching. So I'd already been teaching for 4 semesters before they actually put me in some sort of formal teacher training, which was basically go to HR, learn all the policies of the college. So when I transitioned from an adjunct to full-time is when I actually got my teacher training, which was, again, mostly just onboarding for the college. It had nothing to do with actually classroom strategies and classroom management and those kind of things, right? Lack of mentoring, there was really no mentoring. I had a few people to talk to, but I didn't shadow anybody. So those of you that did shadowing, kudos, right? Because that's what I do with my instructors. Reflective practices, how did you know how you were doing as an instructor? Well, the gauge was, did you get any student complaints? If you got 0 student complaints, you were good to go. Now, I was also a maintenance instructor at the airline I was at before I moved into management. And again, it was teaching just content, Gen Fan classes, and how to do this and how to do that. And you were dealing with professionals who had to come to work every day. Now what are you doing teaching students who they don't have to be there every day? They can show up or not show up. If they miss content, how do you get that content into their head? Because when they finally get to places like Piedmont, if they miss the day of safety wiring, that's a problem for these guys, right? Because you don't have a safety wire all of a sudden. Well, I missed that day at school. That's not an excuse, right? Had your P exam. Oh, I learned from so, but I really didn't learn the right way. These are problems that we are encountering, and it translates into our students. Bad instructors become bad students, and bad mechanics, right? We have to fix that lineage.
Yeah, so the last one is the lack of education on certification student learning outcome requirements. You have to, if you've got these program learning outcomes, right, that you've got a 147 program, we know those outcomes are. And the outcome is they are able to pass the FAA exam and work in the industry as a successful.
Yeah, but here's the other piece of that too. My instructors are trained not only to teach AP mechanics, but to teach people to be good employees. Right? I don't want to turn out just AP mechanics. I want to turn out good employees, good humans, people that go to companies and are success stories. I don't need somebody going to airlines and in 3 weeks of going there doesn't understand what the attendance policy is, doesn't understand their uniform, tool safety, flight control, all these different things, not to mention soft skills. How do you email somebody correctly? How do you communicate with HR when there's a problem with your paycheck, right? These things are soft skills that have to be learned in the schools to turn out really good humans and good employees. So it's all of that. And then on top of that, as an instructor, I need to know what are the requirements in the ACS? What am I supposed to be achieving at the end of my class? The worst thing an instructor could say to me is, well, we didn't get to that. How could you not get to that? It's part of the module. It has to be done. The student has to retain that information. So knowing those learning outcomes is really important. If I talk to an A&P instructor who comes from industry and goes into the classroom and I ask them, what's an SLO? Right? Student learning outcome. What is your student learning outcome for your class? We have to start bridging the gap between maintenance training and academia, right? To know both of those.
So if you think about it, you know, how you're going to go about getting someone to meet a program learning outcome, and then it's broken up into courses, right? So for me at a community college, which is where I primarily worked over my career, we have courses, you guys have mod blocks, mods, whatever, however you want to refer to it, and each of those have learning outcomes. And then you've got, those are broken up into modules or units with their own learning outcomes. And then you get out, and you bring it down to the foundational level, which is the lesson. Like what are the learning outcomes for that 6-hour block, that 6-hour day, or for me, an hour and 20 minutes? What will the students be able to do upon completion of that lesson? This is basic educational stuff. But if you're coming out of industry, you've never been exposed to it. And the rationale for this ATEC Academy is that now we can expose educators within this industry about the whole world of education in terms of helping students meet those learning outcomes, whatever they may be. And it can't be, well, my PowerPoint's going to do that. No. PowerPoint is one thing that you might use, but what are you going to do to build the students to the point where they can achieve the objective?
Yeah, and the other piece of that is we found that as I started to build ATEC Academy, I found that going across all the different schools, this was a problem. Instructors felt overwhelmed. They felt like our retention was really poor in keeping instructors or gaining instructors. Somebody would go in the classroom within 2 weeks, they'd be like, oh my God, I didn't realize when I hand out a lab assignment, I'm going to get 25 back to be graded, right? Or I didn't realize that all of these students are not of my generation. How are they going to listen to me? Because this is the way I was taught in A&P school, and that's not working today, right? We have a very different generation of learners, and we have 24 or 25 learners in a class who are all different customers of your product. They all have different learning styles, they all have different challenges. And this is the same when they get out to industry and maintenance trainers get them after our A&P school, and they have to deal with these humans that say, well, they didn't teach us that way in this school, or they didn't teach us this way in this school, or I never heard of that before, right? So we have to bridge that gap and make A&P instructors, A&T instructors, actual teachers, but merge those two really great skill sets of teaching and technical knowledge, and that doesn't happen all the time. You see it constantly, not just in aviation, automotive, welding, Sean mentioned earlier, all of the CTE programs have the same challenge, right? This is why we don't have a lot of great instructors, and we're trying to make great instructors so that the schools and the maintenance training organizations get better at teaching these new generation of folks, right? This is why PowerPoint doesn't work anymore, right? In our ATEC Academy, we use different strategies to try to reach these younger folks as well.
So the rationale, that's the basis of it. So what do we do now? So we created this together. We have what's called the takeoff, right? And that's 2 days, face-to-face, full days, with a focus on pedagogy in lecture and lab. So those days are spent with Michael and myself. We also have mentors there. Sheryl's been a mentor. Actually, one of our former students, Philip, is in here. And so they have mentors that they'll work with over the term of our class. They get face-to-face instruction for 2 days. And right now, we're on our 3rd. We just started. So I think we'll always have an ATEC Academy that coincides with the conference. And then we're going to run 2 this rest of the year. So it's at Tulsa in June at Sheryl's location, I believe.
Yes.
And then United is hosting us in October. And those will be the takeoff days. That's when we get a chance to know each other. We go over things like managing a hangar, managing lab projects, getting into interactive teaching, what does that mean? Being aware of multiple intelligence theory. And then we, after takeoff, we then get to the flying at altitude part, which right now is 3 virtual synchronous sessions. Those are held on GoToMeeting, and those are required, so the students attend. We've adjusted this. What we do is we do surveys after each of our meetings to figure out what's working, what's not, and then we make adjustments based on what our students tell us. And at first we did 1 virtual meeting a month. We've condensed that now, and so now we're trying to meet every 2 to 3 weeks, so it's shortened, and that way we can get you guys, or your instructors, in, understand, apply it right away, and then out. Those sessions focus on behavior management, student behavior management, teaching with technology, and also development as it's done in a hangar and lab setting. And then third, we have what we call the safe landing, which is the end of the course, the successful completion based on the attendance and assignments. And we'll talk a little bit about those assignments as well. You want to add anything on? So I'd like Sheryl to talk about the role of mentors. Philip can talk a little bit about that as well. And I'll just go ahead and give you the floor.
Sure. So the ATEC Academy assigns mentors to the students in the academy, and mentorship is extremely important. You won't get where you need to be, or you won't get your instructors where they need to be without mentorship from someone that has some experience in the classroom. So this gives us an opportunity to take what the ATEC Academy is teaching the ATEC students, not the students, but the ATEC students, on behaviors in the classroom, things like that, and teaching strategies and all. And then they have a mentor assigned to them where they can check in periodically. They have someone they can go to if they're having an issue, or they need a little bit of advice on how to handle a certain situation, not necessarily disciplinary or anything like that. That's up to their administration. But I've got this project, they need another A&T that they can go to. They don't need a higher ed, a principal, a dean, or somebody like that. They've got a project management issue, or maybe a teaching strategy of a technical skill issue that they want help in trying to figure out the best way to go about doing that. And that's where we as mentors can come in and kind of give them our experience on it, maybe make some suggestions, what we've seen work, and that tends to work really well. The mentorship is it's not super labor intensive, just like our classroom students. Some of our ATEC Academy students are less, they're less maintenance than others. Some of them just take off and they just fly on their own, and they just check in once in a while and go, hey, am I doing this right? Yep, you're doing great. Okay, awesome. And then some need a little bit more help, and we're there for any of them, absolutely. So, but it's not time consuming at all. We just give them what they need, they apply it, and they go. And that works really well. And it works well in our schools too. We have to do that, the same thing with our instructors in our schools. So our schools, we assign mentors for them. We have basically a list of tasks we want to make sure they know how to do. And it's kind of a similar process.
Yeah, and I think for the industry instructors, for the maintenance instructors that come from industry, this is a great way to keep touch with the local A&P school or a mentor from local A&P school. What are you teaching these folks? How are they learning this stuff? What is it what am I missing, right? Why am I getting people that don't do this or don't do that? They hear that complaint a lot, so we want to tune that up as much as we can to make sure that our instructors are bringing that information back to the classroom and saying, okay, I've heard that in industry this is a problem or this is a problem, so that feedback is two-way, right? It helps.
Absolutely.
And we encourage folks that are here maybe today that have teaching experience, have been in the industry teaching for 10, 15 years. If you ever want to volunteer as a mentor, just contact us and we will get you started. Sheryl's been a mentor, I think, for the first 2. We have Jared Britt right now, who's a mentor, and Marshall Pryor, both of whom Marshall's got 30 plus years of experience in Portland. And we find that it really works well to get that individualized attention outside. So they meet during the takeoff period, we're all there together, and then over the next couple of months, we do meet virtually. 15, 20 minutes, as Sheryl said, not a lot of time, and that's to give support, right? That's what we want to do. The results so far, and I'll get into I'll back out of here for a second. So let me go ahead and escape here and just kind of show you where we are in the course. So this is, we have an LMS, right? Our LMS is Google Classroom. So when the students are on their own and they've left takeoff, they can access the materials, all the resources, just like you would use if you're familiar with Canvas or Blackboard or D2L. So we don't have that because we're not paying, when you have an LMS like that, you're paying for that, so we use this. And this is where everything is. They submit assignments here. They access the resources for lesson planning, engaging teaching strategies. And as you can see here, it's loaded with material, right? And you might think, well, that's too much, but they pick and choose what they want to use. So if they meet with Sheryl and someone says, I've got a behavior management issue, Sheryl can always say, hey, listen, we've got a behavior management module in the course. There's some information here you might want to take a look at as well, but I'll also talk to you. So it's not that they have a person and they have materials, videos, files. Works out really well for them. I'm going to let Philip talk about that in a second if he doesn't mind. Here are the assignments. I want to talk to you a little about that. Right now, we used to have 3 monthly reflections. Now we've got 2. So those reflections are basically, hey, tell us about what you've done this month. What kind of challenges have you had? Reflect on something, and then we respond to that reflection with some guidance or maybe some corrective suggestions, or just like, hey, that was great. Keep on doing that. What you did worked well. In addition to the reflections, they have a classroom observation report. So over the course of the first few weeks, this new ATEC Academy cohort will go into a classroom. And they can go, if they're at a community college, they can go into a welding classroom. They can go to any classroom they want. If they're at a proprietary 147, where it's just 147, go watch a peer teach. Take notes on what you saw, report back to us what you saw. Did something work well? Did you notice something that didn't work well? Was there a student that was on a phone the whole time or sleeping? What did the instructor do? Nothing? Did the instructor have a conversation after? Sometimes they don't know. But that goes into that, I can just stand over here, that report. They're also required to interview an instructor, an aviation maintenance instructor. Find out how that person teaches a certain subject. Hey, how do you teach wiring? Can you offer me any advice? What's your biggest strategy that you use to deal with a student who seems unmotivated? What's the biggest challenge you've had? What's the biggest success you've ever had? So we want these new instructors to talk to other people who have been at it for a while. They also have to attend, as you can see here. If they attend, by the way, just in case any of you are thinking about doing it, or if you know someone in your facility or organization, they can miss a virtual meeting. We don't encourage that, obviously, because they're live and they're synchronous. But if they do, they're recorded. And so they could watch the recording, and then to make up that time, they would then give a report about what they learned in that recording. And then the big one is the recorded lesson, right? And that is when they are asked to record themselves teaching a live class, and then upload that recording. They can put it in the cloud, give me a link to it, review it. I give detailed feedback, and then they could, get that feedback. I'll be honest, there are a lot of times where, that someone may go through the cohort, and I've done this too, in a different capacity, and they may learn, like, hey, I should do some brainstorming activity in between slide 5 and 6. And sometimes I'll see a recorded lesson, and there's like 30 slides, and it's all talking. It's like, hey, listen, consider between slide 10 and 11, asking them to break up into groups of 2 to solve, maybe they're going over how to resolve an issue in an aircraft. Have an activity in there where the students are going to do something and then come back. So that's the nuts and bolts of it. And what I have on the next slide is basically some of the comments we have received in the surveys, the effectiveness of the training. Philip, if you don't mind talking a little bit about, you can come on up here.
Sure. I attended the training this past summer, and I've been a mechanic for just right at 35 years. And this is not about teaching aviation maintenance. It's about learning how to teach anything, right? So you got to get that straight before you go into it, okay? It's not like a typical training course that we go to. So you got to open your mind and really, there's so much information in there. And he said, you don't do all of it, right? You do the lessons, but there's so much information in there that you can use that's beneficial. But if you can get yourself out of your normal bubble that you live in and just kind of open your mind and let these guys teach you what they have to teach, it will make you a better teacher, right? One of my mentors back at the school, she said, you know, she was talking to a group of us, and she said, you're all come from the industry, right? You've all got years of experience, but now you decided to teach, so don't forget that you're a teacher now. You're not still a mechanic, you are a teacher, and that needs to be your goal, is to learn how to teach. And this is a great tool, I highly recommend it. I was a little nervous on the recording and some of the stuff that I had to do, but man, there's so much in there. The PowerPoints, I'm guilty as charged, right? I've got these huge PowerPoints. And now, when I see a PowerPoint, my first thought is, okay, how can I break this up and make it smaller? How can I get all the fluff out and just deliver the ACS, right? Or whatever, the main thing. Clean it up, man. I've got some instructors who have 200, 300 page slides that they'll break up, and it's like, it's just a drone. You're just droning on and droning on and droning on, right? That doesn't work, man. They tune out. So shorten it, just get all the extra crap out of there, focus on the details, and break it up. And they're gonna show you how to do these things.
And I think it's important to understand too, we talk about it all the time, when students feel unsupported or failing in your schools, they make the choice with their feet. Leave, right? They're bored, they're tuned out, they leave, they don't come back. Guess what happens with their instructors? When they feel unsupportive, or they feel like they can't accomplish the goal, or they're not getting their students' attention, participation, they leave too.
So we got a huge problem at my school with turnover, just like he's talking about, if you don't give them the support. I mean, we're much better now than when I started. The school does their part, and the aviation part, you know, we do their part, so.
By the way, I did not buy him a beer.
No,
He's unpaid.
no.
So that's legit. You know, and I've been in community college since 1994, not 95, and yeah, there have been some improvements. You know, now a lot of community colleges, I don't know about universities so much, have a traditional, you know, new faculty training institute, academy, whatever it is, and this is, if you don't have that, this is a great opportunity to jump into something that give you a little bit more knowledge about what to do in that classroom.
And as fast as our 147 schools are growing, there's not a lot of time, right? Yet we're hard pressed to find an instructor, get them in place for the semester, get them up and running, and they get started, they hit the ground running, and 3 weeks into the program, they're like, oh my God, what did I sign up for? And they're either ready to run, cry, crawl into the corner, or some of them come out successful, right? But the bad news is a large percentage of really great technicians who can pass on some super knowledge to these young folks run away. They just run away. They're like, I'm not even signed up for this.
I've experienced exactly that, with a high turnover rate because of what was going on the adjunct side. Now all of a sudden, I don't have that turnover rate anymore, and I'm like, damn, I need to slow down on hiring, you know? So if you work on it and you support the new people and don't challenge them to create their own course, give them something that's already made, and support them, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, sure. So also with the ATEC Academy, even if you do have a robust training program within your district, professional or within your state that you send new teachers to, what are the chances of there being more than just that one AMT instructor in that class? The others in that class will likely be from other programs, health or some other, some other aspect. To have 12, 10, 14 people in there that are all in there and they all teach aviation maintenance. And they can all, network and share ideas and all that while they're in that class and while they're going through all the virtual sessions. That's huge. Because I know we all went through the Oklahoma Department of Career Tech training, but at the time that I went through, and likely the time you guys went through, there probably wasn't another AMT instructor in there. And so you're listening to all this, all the talk, all the teaching strategy, and here you are, you're a mechanic, and you're coming in and you're listening to all these teachers, and mechanics are the worst students, right? I mean, some of the worst. Teachers are the second. Teachers are the worst students.
I think you're right.
Teachers are the worst, and mechanics are probably the second worst. But so to have that support and that kind of light thinking in the room with you, you kind of don't feel alone, and you feel like you're not, single dot in this big batch of marbles.
And maintenance training is very different at the airline. You know, when I came from the airline, maintenance training is very different, right? It's OJT, it's a couple of people, it's maybe a classroom for a week for a Gen Fam. And again, it's very easy to talk that language amongst one another. You're learning a whole different language when it comes to academics and teaching and student outcomes and student challenges and behavior management and classroom management and, you know, people with educational challenges and those kind of things. We've got to manage all of that in the classroom now. And then as an employer or as a maintenance trainer, you're getting those same people right from my school to your employment. You're hiring my graduates. And so are they being taught the right way, and what are you inheriting from me? You know, I got to be setting them up for success there too.
So the results have really spoken for themselves. We have 17 graduates so far. We have 9 current students in our ATEC Academy for spring 2025. By the way, there are other choices that they could answer into that question. No one's chosen I would not recommend. So 2/3 have said I would highly recommend, and 1/3 said I would recommend. That's pretty good. Some of the comments that are in the feedback, and we survey again at the end of the course, I'll just put them up here. You could read. I'm not going to read to you, but here are 3 that I chose. And I just hope that we can continue reaching as many instructors, as many administrators that want their instructors to be well trained before they start, or within the first 6 months or a year. It's been an interesting group. We have both corporate trainers and higher ed and high school. I was not aware that we would get that. I don't think that you were aware either. We have people in there now who are going to be training faculty. So the focus though is on new instructors, and so just consider that. At this point, I have pictures as well. You can see I think this looks like Tucson, right?
Yeah,
This is Pima.
Far left is Norman.
Yep, that's more Norman. You can see Justin in there, right? And, yeah. So those are our pictures. We'll continue to take pictures of our crew working together, and I have a video, but I'm not going to play it for you. It was in a hotel room, so you can see it. But yeah, I think it's fun. I think they get a lot out of it. And they can hear upcoming courses. If you want to learn more about that, I believe it's a registration page. It is, right?
Registration.
So at least just keep it, open on your window, whatever you're using, or I'm sure the registration information is available through the ATEC website. We would love to see your people there. If you know that you're going to be hiring new instructors.
We would encourage you to make this a part of your onboarding process if you can. Have people coming in. It really bridges the gap from technical training to bringing in that higher academic standard, and then backing it up with how do I transition that into the shop section as well. So we talk about managing the classroom, and then there's a whole workshop on how do we manage in the shop as well, how do we manage projects, how do we get to the ACS, how do we satisfy and grade and assess people's competencies as it relates to the ACS as well, to make sure that the instructors are training to the ACS and ensuring a proper assessment on the backside that a student's completion is to that standard. So all of that's included in this training, so it's a lot in 2 days plus 3 virtuals.
Yep. And then we have the meetings with mentors. Those are encouraged.
These guys respond. If you email them with a question, they get right back to you, and you can talk on the phone and call them. I was one of the highly recommended ones. Just open your mind. This is about teaching and how to deliver content. You will grow. You will grow from this. It's very good.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's a survey just to get your feedback as far as the session is concerned. I'd love to hear about your thoughts. And then while you're doing this, if you just use your device, QR code, take you right to a survey. Any questions that we can answer? Yes?
What is the cost per student for you guys, for us, in good?
I don't even know what it is.
I am not certain.
Summer registration is $975.
$975 for ATEC
Per
member?
ATEC member.
Okay,
I think it's 12 something for non-ATEC.
thank you. We don't really handle that stuff.
I don't take payments, I
Yeah.
wish I did, but I don't.
It's on the ATEC website.
So my program has a few folks retiring, and so we're trying to build this kind of shadowing program for adjuncts to come in and get experience. But I'm looking at your program, it's really sort of designed for an active instructor. So if I'm using an IA who's not teaching yet, would they still benefit from this, or can you adapt that last classroom
I think so,
teaching demo
yes.
video that they're not going to do at this point? So
The teaching, yeah, so think about this. When you're an undergrad and you're going to your education degree and you do your practicums and then you do your student teaching, you're not hired yet. So if you do your, like my daughter is in school, in college for this, so if she does her student teaching in the spring, she won't really teach until the next fall. It could be longer if she'll get hired. So I think it would help to be exposed and then be able to apply it later.
yeah, we're trying to build continuity so that these folks don't retire and suddenly we're throwing people.
Yeah.
Would there be an opportunity, do you know who the adjunct is, would there be an opportunity?
We have a pipeline we're building. We have a few folks that were active IAs that are already working in our program. We're trying to scale up to instructors, and then we're going to start hiring.
Yeah, if you can schedule out periodic times where they can come in and observe the class they're gonna be teaching, or even just an exemplary instructor.
Sure.
And then potentially maybe come in and like just do a short teaching segment in that course,
Yeah.
and then maybe they can
Almost
video
like a
that.
guest instruction.
Kind of take it over for the
100%.
Right.
lecture for the day, and then
We've got that challenge
Yeah.
with this cohort.
Answer your question.
Another question or comment, right? The overall equation you get from this is fantastic. We're a startup program in high school. We're ready to hire someone. I happen to play beer league hockey with a bunch of American Airlines guys. One of the things, because I'm recruiting all the time, like, hey, this is your next, this is your retirement job. But the apprehension of the classroom management is tremendous.
Yes.
And just as an organization, the thought, well, hey, you got to get one end of the equation covered. Thinking about putting this, just as a sales point to, the retirement age individual to say, you could do this. We're going to be here to support you, because that's exactly what I hear the apprehension is that I'm good, I know this stuff. I'm scared to death for the classroom.
Sure.
And I don't know what to expect.
Mechanics are used to working with inanimate objects, they're not used to working with things that talk back.
Exactly.
And they can't throw things at them,
Not
so.
with a lot of people around.
Yeah, exactly.
But it just seems like it's a slam dunk. We're gonna do this. But I'm thinking about, just kind of, the nature of the landscape, particularly in Tulsa alone, we get this huge amount of people that are different to go out. Some people are gonna do craft work, some people are gonna do, like I said, I've heard that for years, my wife said,
Yeah.
To have that
We hear
support
that a lot.
system is huge, for sure.
yeah, it's awesome.
And that takes away that apprehension.
Yeah.
Do you have an average number of instructors, wannabe instructors that come in and actually just don't want to, they just can't do it? Is it fairly low?
Do you mean for the ATEC County or
Just in general?
these guys could
It's actually fairly high. It's actually fairly high, yeah.
I've had one instructor quit twice this month. Due to
I
stress.
mean, it's probably somewhere close to 40%
Yeah.
instructors don't make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's as high as, the deficiency in instructors is almost as high as the need for technicians.
I guess I'm lucky that our program is fairly new and I've been very, very fortunate.
Yeah, I mean, some of us get very lucky, right? I will tell you that I've been running programs for about the last 12 years, and I've been hiring instructors off the street for the last 12 years, and a lot of retirees. And one of the keys to that is, are your instructors part-time or full-time, right? Most retirees don't want another JOB, they've already retired from one. So if you can work them part-time or find a way to work them into the system where they're teaching one class a week or 2 classes a week, maybe they're a really good sheet metal person or a really good electrician or they're really good at systems, troubleshooting, things like that. If you can plug them into your organization to teach students directly that skill, and you only have to work them 1 or 2 days a week, it's great. At a prior institution where I was director of education, that was a huge problem because everybody had to be hired as an employee and they had to put in 25 hours a week, and it's like, that's not what this guy wants to sign up for. It's not for Wisconsin, so it really depends on the structure. A lot of organizations work these people to death, and they don't realize that they're coming out of retirement to do this, to give back, and they're not signing up for another career. So part of that is, part of the problem. I always tell my instructors, when this becomes a JOB, I want you to enact it. So, right? There's only a few that really want to be career educators. So, and you have two pockets of educators right now. You have the students who graduate from A&P school, they go out in industry, they work 3 to 5 years at a regional airline, they go to work for an MRO, and then they decide that that's not for me, I either don't like the schedule, it doesn't work with my family, I don't want to live here, and they leave, and they go back to the school they came from and say, hey, are you looking for teachers? And they end up becoming teachers. Or it's the 55 and older who have had a long career, they're very successful, they're very good at being a mechanic, and now they want to impart that to a younger generation, and they get in there and start teaching, and that's overwhelming. So that's the problem with that situation. Any other questions? Comments?
And it's a lot easier for a mechanic turned teacher to go back to industry right now. It's a whole lot easier. They will not hesitate to jump ship if you don't give them the support they need. So, and the retired ones won't hesitate to just go fishing.
All for fishing, right?
It's something.
Yep. Right. Please reach out to us if you need any help. We'd love to see some of you folks, if not yourselves, in our next classes, and we're working with you. And, on the industry side, this is great for maintenance trainers too, especially those who are not super experienced on maintenance training.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming, appreciate it.